Welcome to the Fandom Portals podcast, the podcast that explores how fandoms can help you learn and grow. Guys, we are back. I'm here with Brash. How are you going, Brash?
I am very well. Yourself?
I'm awesome. I'm very, very good. All right, this is part 2 of our Gabriel episode. So if you haven't listened to part 1, it is in our list. Make sure you go and check it out. In that episode, we talked all about how they made this movie on such a minuscule budget. And we also went to our Fandom Fact Face-Off where we told you some very awesome information about some of the cast and some of the production techniques that they used. So in this episode, we're actually going to be talking pretty in depth about the characters of Gabriel and also the character of Sammael and Michael. We're going to be looking at our real deal segments, and we're going to be finishing off with our MVTs, where we tell you our most valuable takeaway from the movie of Gabriel, a movie that is indeed a battle between the archangels and the fallen in the realm called Purgatory. It stars Gabriel, who actually comes down to save the city's souls and the inhabitants from the darkness that is the fallen's rule. All right, Brash, without any further ado, let's jump into our Popcorn Perspective segment. All right, everybody, the Popcorn Perspectives segment is where the hosts take the characters from the media and analyze their development and growth through the movie. We express to our co-host how this character should be viewed in your opinion and the meaningful connections that character makes in terms of its character arc. So we're looking at 2 characters today, Brash. We're looking at Gabriel, the title character, and we're looking at Sammael / Michael. And we might take a look at Gabriel first. He is played by Andy Whitfield, and you like Andy Whitfield, don't you?
I do. I've watched most people probably know him from Spartacus, Blood and Sand. I've watched pretty much all of that. This also has Lucy Lawless in it. I have things with Lucy Xena, oof, my warrior princess.
You can tell me you grew up in the 90s without telling me you grew up in the 90s.
Right? Xena and Hercules. Yep. Love them.
Power couple.
And then when they crossed over,
but we digress.
We digress. So Andy Whitfield, phenomenal actor. Even he was going to quit acting until he got the role of Gabriel. So we could have never had Andy Whitfield as Spartacus if it wasn't for Gabriel. So everyone who loves Andy in Spartacus, get down on your knees and
thank you to the Australian
film for giving Andy the role of Gabriel.
Very good, yeah.
But yes, unfortunately, he's no longer with us. Couldn't quite finish Spartacus, unfortunately. Passed away from cancer, which is a bitch. I've had a few family members die of cancer as well. It's always tough and rough, and the fact that it just shows his, and probably why, as we said in the first episode, the dedication that the cast and the crew took on this movie. He, through Spartacus, for pretty much the whole of Spartacus, sick. He had cancer at one point, then it sort of went into recession, then it came back again. But through the whole time, he was fighting an illness while fighting to the sand. So then this shows there the dedication of all the people in Gabriel as well. The fact that they are willing to just push through the tough times to get through and
finish the project. And this probably will go a lot further on to my MVT probably later on about the dedication, but also the faith that everyone had in the movie itself. But I digress again. Andy Gabriel, probably one of my favorite archangels. I love his portrayal in this because he, throughout the whole time movie, for the most part of the movie, he's almost like this wide-eyed foal, like baby deer. And he's just in a new land.
He's
learning to be a human for the first time.
He's just goes up and he's he portrays that sort of heavenly hope. He's always they're oh, hide your light. He's don't, brother, show your light. We are archangels. And they're no, they'll send you and kill you. He's let them try. Right? He's just so positive and
he's righteous, isn't he? He's got that sort of righteous.
Yeah, but it's also that younger brother sort of pep.
Yeah, that it's almost like that impulsive innocence of ignorance.
Well, you got the Michael, where he's all
he's jaded and been here for a long time.
He's your older brother.
Yeah.
Then you got Lucifer, who's the renegade misfit.
Yeah.
And then you got the younger brother, who's the come on, guys, we got this.
That's exactly what Gabriel's like, yeah.
And for the most part of the movie, that's exactly what he's like, yeah. He always willing to help, always like, come on, like trying to pep everyone up. And he's like, come on, we can band together.
Yeah, that's exactly what he tries to do at the start of the movie. Hey, he falls from grace, comes down to this purgatory realm with the mission to try and save the inhabitants of Purgatory from the fallen who have taken over the realm. When he gets there, he starts to learn a lot about the fact that he starts to learn a lot about being human. You know, Uriel actually has to tell him, "You're going to get hungry. Don't forget to eat." And apparently, there was lots of scenes that were cut out that showed Gabriel really just getting used to his human form.
Yeah.
Fun fact: the movie originally cut was 3 hours long, but they had to reduce it to a 2-hour sort of runtime for their audience. But it cut away a lot of those scenes. Yeah, it showed a lot of scenes it gave more context to Gabriel coming down and his innocence and him learning to be in the purgatory space.
Perfect for a show.
Yeah, it gave a lot of like context to that purgatory space. He obviously came down and started looking for allies in this, which shows his eagerness, and he was basically trying to enlist, wasn't he? Because Uriel was there. He was looking for, Raphael was missing at this time. Ithuriel.
It was clear the darkness had taken over. He might need some help. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, the whole place was just a desolate dystopian land. And he came down and he sort of started to wonder why all his brothers had previously failed in the mission that they were sent down to do. And that sort of perplexed him. And that was that interaction with Uriel. And that's what really got me into the movie, that interaction with Uriel, where he's talking to his brother who is defeated, downtrodden, and basically refusing to help because he thought it was a lost cause. And then Gabriel's still going on even after that to actually want to fight this fight. I want to talk to you because maybe you can shed some light on this for me about one of the more interesting parts of this movie for me was he had his fall, and then he obviously started to be in purgatory for a long time, Uriel having warned him that this realm will infect him and he'll start to obviously feel things that the people of this plane feel, and it may corrupt him. And we actually see a scene where he's battling Asmodeus where you can see his eyes change from that vibrant angelic blue to like a browny gold, which indicates sort of a fallen sort of complex, which we know from this movie that Sammael, Michael, was obviously had transitioned into a fallen as well, and he starts to make that change too. So I was wondering if you could talk to me about like his fall there and how that kind of impacted him, because he did start, as we talked about, as that really sort of, he was the one who really wanted to push that mission. He really wanted to save these people in purgatory. He wanted to recruit all his brothers to do so, and then the darkness started happening to him where he kind of lost all of his brothers in the explosion. The fallen started to come after.
Lilith taking out Uriel. But the thing is, well, and to be fair, it was his fault.
Yep.
So he tried rallying these troops that weren't really ready for a fight or not really willing to fight. And he brought them out and said, come on, let's fight. And they're all like, what, Raphael was injured.
Ithuriel was in hiding.
Ithuriel was hiding.
In the soup kitchen.
In the soup kitchen, yeah. We're looking after Raphael and just trying to do what he can by running a soup kitchen. But that's the most he was willing to put out. Like he completely gave up on any sort of fighting.
Jade had been humiliated too, Amatiel.
And she humiliated and lost her wings. Mm-hmm. So she could realistically no longer even fight on the same level as anyone else. Uriel had completely cut himself off from the angelic power and was out on the outskirts hiding so that no one would ever realistically be able to find him. You just stay out there forever, not interacting with anyone, only going in probably to get supplies.
And then I guess that kind of guilt that he felt, and then obviously the rage after that he goes through, starts to become a bit of a problem because he starts to see and have this challenge of identity, I guess you could say, because he always did see himself as that righteous individual, one that would follow the mission. He came down to do something very important, and he almost kind of failed in that. So I guess he then went and battled Asmodeus in his realm.
I think I know what you're getting at. I think I know what you're coming towards. This is probably the most similar part to The Crow. So in The Crow, when he kills Bumboy and the mother's there and he heals the mother, and that sort of brings him back from this complete destructive path he was on. Same thing happens with Gabriel with Asmodeus. So he fights Asmodeus. He's pretty much killed nearly everyone else.
It's a brutal fight scene too, yeah.
Yeah, and he fights us, but yeah, here's a brutal with a shotgun. I really enjoyed this fight scene. Probably all of
It's the best. I reckon it's the best fight scene in the movie. I think this one trumps the climax.
This one and their first one. And the first one I reckon was
with
pretty
Moloch,
good too.
yeah,
Moloch,
with the knives,
where it's really close knit and they're just like pretty much.
They use silhouette really well in that fight too.
Yeah, and it's pretty much like a fight like you see in Matrix, where like Neo and Agent Smith are just sitting like basically just face to face, and they're just throwing punches, but they're doing like really quick movements, and that's I really enjoy that. But yeah, it's the Asmodeus fight's probably one of my favorite fights. Then afterwards, he sees the woman who I don't know if you knew this, but Asmodeus, because it doesn't really say it in the movie, but Asmodeus, because he's like the lust and all that kind of stuff. But he loves himself so much. He was actually trying to change that woman into him.
Oh, that blonde woman, he's trying to reconfigure her.
To make her look like him. So she'd be a mirror image of himself. So yeah, that's the thing. And when Gabriel sees that, he's used his grace, pretty much uses nearly all of his power to revert her back to how she originally was. Yeah, that sort of rekindles the fact that, yeah, he's not like, yes, he's brothers and sisters and all that might have perished, but he's there to help people, not hurt people. And I think him healing her and fixing what was done to her by Asmodeus sort of rekindles his reason for being there and brings him back to his, I'm here to help. That is my purpose.
Because, yeah, I definitely think he does lose his purpose in that moment of trauma where he loses all of his brothers. But then in that fight scene as well, there was also the moment where he turns and sees the young child and then the other woman that he spares as well. So the directors and filmmakers are really trying to say, in this world of absolute corruption, and he does feel this anger and this resentment, but he still has a line that he won't cross. Like he still has this thing that is good about him, and he has a mission and a purpose that he's very much enlightened to.
Yeah. Well, he showed, because when he turns and points the gun at the kid, and he sees the fear in the kid's eyes, it's like he's like, and sees the because she plays a pretty Naomi Ormond. She plays Candy, who's the woman he finds out where Jade went.
Yeah.
And then she pops up again. But she is actually the first person who actually was semi-decent.
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. In the Purgatory realm.
In the Purgatory realm.
Yep.
Yeah. She's because everyone else he's met so far been sort of scungy sort of things. But then he meets her. And though she's like, oh, I can't give away her location, blah, blah. She's probably like the first person that's actually has been sort of relatively not like normal, like unlike Alan Flower, I think it is, who plays Jakes.
Yep.
He's the bouncer at the front of the thing.
Yeah.
With who's just a
seedy man.
Seedy
drug dealing, yeah.
But yeah, it's he turns around and points a gun at a kid. Kid's scared and he sees the fear in the kid's eyes and realizes I'm scaring an innocent. He's innocent and I'm scaring him. That's not what I'm here to do. And then kills the Asmodeus girl and finds his purpose again.
And I think that sort of leads him into the climax where he then goes and faces Sammael. And we might talk a little bit about Sammael and Michael, and then we'll sort of talk about the climax, because I have some questions for you about the climax that I want some clarity on. So when we're talking about Michael and Sammael, obviously played by Dwayne Stevenson, he's one of the higher ranking angels who ends up becoming a fallen. He has his own internal conflict about the heaven and hell sort of situation in Purgatory. He's very aware of the stakes that are involved in this sort of cosmic space, and he's actually he ends up killing the Sammael and taking his place. So Michael ends up killing Sammael, and then Michael takes his place and becomes Sammael and the leader of the fallen. And that's the big twist in the climax for everybody. His most pivotal moment, he's a very sort of high-ranking and commanding presence, as we talked about for Dwayne Stevenson. He's this person that has this ability and power to command all of his forces around, but he always seems to have this soft spot for Gabriel throughout. He always sort of doesn't want him, and that's a through line through the whole movie, and it's almost like a foreshadowing of the event that was to come. Like, he never really wants his fallen brothers to hurt Gabriel. He does go out to hurt the others, but he doesn't sort of hurt Gabriel because Michael loved Gabriel the most.
Yeah.
He could feel himself turning in this moment, and that's where we see in the loft at the very start when Gabriel goes and finds Michael's belongings, finds the note slipped in the mirror, he actually sees Michael giving his belongings to Gabriel. So he still has that internal hope inside him that somebody can get the job done. It's almost like he gave up and he knows that it can't be him because he's felt that corruption of Purgatory has leaked into his being and made him become what he is now becoming. With that in mind, he does this. We'll talk about the climax now. We move into this fight scene between Gabriel and Michael, where Gabriel realizes that Sammael is in fact Michael, and they end up fighting each other and killing one another, basically.
Say my name.
Yeah, say it. And that's probably the worst piece of dialogue in the whole movie, just by the way. That whole sort of emotional sequence, I couldn't get behind that. But the twist was good. I liked that twist. Gabriel and Michael sort of fight each other and end up killing one another. And then Michael ends up offering a last sort of moment of grace where he heals Gabriel. And it's almost like he's trying to move beyond his own mistake, or he's, it's like a call to balance where he knows that there is this massive amount of darkness in the world. So he uses his last little piece of light and grace to heal that corruption in the last way that he can. I also thought that it probably could have been a way for Michael to stop Gabriel from fully succumbing to that darkness that he had tasted before. And then, he obviously loved him, and there was that selfless act of love as well, and that sacrifice. So I think Michael goes through this transition, or Sammael goes through this transition where he's feeling hopelessness in a very bad sort of situation, but he knows that the right way is to bring the light back. He just wasn't able to do it himself. So he empowered Gabriel to do it. And I think when I first watched that, when he healed Gabriel, I was a little bit confused about why he did that. But upon thinking about it, I think it definitely was the fact that lighter side of him was already always there, which makes him probably a really compelling character for me. It's a really sort of redemptive act. And I think he has this moment of clarity and this healing, and he really helped Gabriel to understand his place in this battle just through that act of healing him. It brings this sense of hope because it says, okay, the light can still come back and Gabriel's the one that's able to do it. And it shows you that sort of redemption is always possible because he was as fallen as you could really get in the situation that he was in. It kind of puts that area of grey into the black and white of it all. And my question for you, I guess, is in regards going back to Gabriel. After this sort of happens and after Michael/Sammael heals him, he makes the choice then to go and throw himself off a building. And I guess I didn't really get that. I don't know why he kind of did that.
So for what I believe is because if he hadn't, he would have been taken back up by the light.
Mm.
And then the process starts again. Darkness sends more darkness. Light sends more light. Cycle.
The war continues.
The war continues.
Okay.
He decided, and because when they go back up, they forget.
Oh, yeah, because he said that to Jade, didn't he? This would be the last time I see you, and I won't remember our time together, yeah.
Yeah, they forget. So if he went to going back up to light, he would have forgotten. Cycle would continue. So he wanted to, and this is why I think that the end credit scene, the fact that they cut that out from Australian cinema, which I thought was weird. I think it was in the American one, but it wasn't in the Australian one. Cutting that out, I think, really ruined at the end.
I believe so too, because for context, everybody, in the end, Gabriel throws himself off of a building to essentially end the cycle.
Light shines upon the city again. Jade is staying in the window of the loft, and in comes Gabriel.
Yeah, and that's the end credit scene where Gabriel comes in. He's almost in human form, no tattoos, no piercing angelic eyes, and I actually think that ending would have been better, in 100%. My opinion. Yeah.
Well, technically, it's still the ending. It's just that they didn't have it in the Australian cinema. Like when it came out in Australia, they didn't have it in the Australian one for some reason. I don't know why, because it would have made a lot more sense because he's deciding to stay in Purgatory so he can continue to do good and help people, and therefore trying to break that cycle of having a war happen in the streets all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think this might tip into my MVT a little bit, but I also think that he was, the way I sort of made sense of his sacrifice at the end without the end credit scene where he came back was he was fearful of the darkness that lay within him.
Yeah.
So him seeing that he was susceptible to that fall and basically eliminating himself from the equation, being like, I don't want, because if I stay here and I succumb and I fall, then that's bringing darkness back into this realm that is now already light and ruining basically all the sacrifice that had occurred to make it happen this way.
The fact that they don't have that end credit scene is what makes that confusing, because him killing himself, yes, he wouldn't go back to the light and he would just destroy his body and his soul forever, but then that wouldn't accomplish anything in the long run, because then the war just happened. With him there, if they were to send anyone else out, he could potentially guide them, help them, and continue to have the light win, because he's been through it all, he's done it all, and now he's just there to help, and he remembers it all.
See, that would have been good too, because then he would act as that mentor character. And Shane Abus actually talked about this being a franchisable movie where there could be 2 extra sequels. So if any other angels came down in different forms, in different human bodies, the ones that had been previously killed, because that battle would continue, then Gabriel would be there to say, help Raphael in his new body or Uriel in his new body to become the new bringer of light.
Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to, because they're dead.
I thought that they could.
No, so if an angel is to die in purgatory, their souls are sent to the void to be endlessly destroyed. So it would be one of the other countless fucking angels that they've got, and one of the other countless demons that they've got.
So does that mean the end credit scene with Gabriel, if he was to die after he fell off that building, maybe that's why they took out the end credit scene, because it didn't make sense to the law that they had continuing to start with. He shouldn't have been able to come back in that manner.
That's more a symbol of him falling from grace and losing his wings.
Same way that Jade did.
Same way Jade did.
So it was a symbolic fall from grace, as opposed to he literally hurled himself off a building.
Become fully mortal.
See, these sorts of things I really feel like and wish would have been explained a little bit better through the climax.
Yeah, 100%.
Because on the face of it, it really just looked like Michael and Sammael were fighting Gabriel.
He heals him just to jump off the building.
He heals him just to then have him throw himself off the building. I think that realization that happens between Gabriel really needs to be a little bit more developed for us to, as audience members, to get it.
Yeah, just that scene of him walking back through that door as a mortal, it would have been enough context for most people to get, he fell from grace to become mortal.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, that's the end. Oh shit, is going to be more? Because if demons come up, because he's now mortal, they won't know that he was an angel. So he can be under, if a demon...
That would bring a whole new challenge and a whole different sort of tension point to the movie, where he's trying to fight these fallen and he's depowered.
Yeah.
That would be,
But the thing is, he can stay under the radar, so then when an angel does come, he can go straight to the angel, where he can try and find that angel, because they come down like a shooting fucking star.
Right.
So you just need to keep a lookout for that. But when an angel gets there, if he can get to that angel first before the demons do, he can be like, hey guy, remember me? I used to be Gabriel.
Yep.
Let me show you how you can develop your powers so you don't get spotted straight away. And I've got plenty of things that you can do to help out this issue. Let's go.
Yeah.
And be that Miyagi, wax on, wax off.
I think the thing that confused me the most was when he was sort of throwing himself off the building, his line that he said was, "You threw me far from grace and now I fall onto it." So to me, I really I think we're right in terms of him falling is a symbolic gesture of him falling from grace. But that sentence that he says kind of implies that he's going back to grace, which is why I kind of led to believe in my first iteration and reading of the film was that he was so negatively affected by his fall or his almost fall when he was fighting Asmodeus and being affected by the realm of Purgatory, that he was fearful that it would happen again and he would bring evil back into this realm. So I think that is a little bit muddy for me.
Well, see, my interpretation of that line is you may fall far from grace because heaven's meant to be the highest form of grace, like it's meant to be the wonderful, magical, happy place it is. But I think when he says, but now I fall from grace, I think he's saying that Purgatory itself.
That is so much better. Yeah, I get that. That's awesome. Yeah. So the thing that, because he was talking to Michael about all the amazing things that he felt in Purgatory as well.
Bad and good.
But
that's just
that's a great line.
Yeah. The fact that there's so many different emotions and that not just the one unhappy emotion or the I'm very angry emotion. It's like the amount of smells, feels, touch, taste,
Love.
like anger, like all that just emotion is just like the human experience. It like is
The grace.
the wonder and the grace of this place. And so now he's fallen
That
onto it,
makes sense.
and that's why he comes out. He's human, so he can fully embrace.
Yeah,
that.
we need the end credit scene.
Yeah, exactly. And without it,
Ties it all together.
like you can look at it that way and be like, oh yeah, I can see him. He's falling, but because you don't see him alive at the end, you don't know, is he falling to die or is he falling to become
that was
human?
me. That was me watching that. And can I just say as well, just to put it just to finish off this conversation, this was made in 2007. Did they then initiate the end credit scene before Marvel?
Ooh,
Because Iron Man was 2008.
true.
I bet got some money for that. I honestly think that the character of Gabriel is probably one of the best parts of this movie in terms of his character arc. Andy Whitfield portraying him in the way that he acts. I think he juxtaposes well with Dwayne Stevenson's Sammael / Michael. And for me, I think that now that I've sort of conceptualized that line, you threw me far from grace, and now I fall onto it. I think that end credit scene would have really tied it all together and made that climax a little bit more fulfilling for me. So yeah, that was a really, really good point, Brash. I like that. All right, let's go to our real deal segment. In our Real Deal segment, we randomly select a criteria or lens to view the media through and discuss elements with the intention of finding out whether it can be rated positively or negatively. Each week, we name these positive and negative criteria in something that will reflect a fun element of the movie that we have been looking at. So if something is good this week, Brash, we're going to call it... Say again?
Arcs?
Actually, that's better than what I got. You're on fire today, Brash.
Because I was going to say Arcs and Fallen.
Yes, that's it. We will do that. That is perfect. If it's good, we're going to call it Arc. And if it's bad, we're going to call it Fallen, which represents obviously the angel's status. So good being Arc, bad being Fallen. I'll tell you what I had, but it's worse.
No, do it now.
So the good one I had was Accept the Dawn, Bleed With Me, Brother.
Oh, yeah.
Pulls Michael / Sammael onto
I
the
love
pipe.
that. I actually, that's probably one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah. I am taken out of that scene by the unrealistic nature of it. Because it's not a sharp pipe. Anyway, we digress. And then the one that I had for the bad rating was I love you, Michael, but I hate what you've become. Which is both from the climax scene.
Yeah, I love that too, actually.
Yeah. So you like mine and I like yours, but I think we're going to go with good rating being Arc, bad rating being Fallen, just because it's simpler, better, and it's perfect. All right, so let's randomly generate our first real deal. All right, so the first one that's come up is the world building or the setting. So this movie takes place in Purgatory. With the assumption, we're kind of introduced to the idea that there is something above because there is a extensively long digital effects scene of Gabriel making his way through a wormhole, Doctor Who style, until he eventually falls down into Purgatory. What are your thoughts on Purgatory, Mr. Brasher?
I have a feeling that it's not right, but this is the way I interpret it because I think it'd be more interesting. So they call it Purgatory. I just think it's Earth.
I think that's how I interpreted it as well.
Yeah. So they call it Purgatory, but so it's just where we live now. So Purgatory, and this is a lot of people also contribute Purgatory to this as well, saying that Purgatory is just our life, and how we live our life determines if we go to heaven or hell.
Yep.
And so I believe that Purgatory he falls into is just here with us.
I think that would make sense too, because he does talk about that human experience and all of the different things that he's felt good and bad on this realm. It's obviously very much like Earth, if not a dystopian version, neo-noir version of it.
New York City, yep.
A city in the underbellies, basically.
Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, that would be perfect as well. So I think that for me, I always, even though they call it Purgatory, I always saw it and imagined it as Earth, as our planet, our existence here. Why do you think they chose to go with Purgatory instead of just?
Well, I think because it gives it, like, as you're saying, you know how they didn't want to go too far from like heaven, hell, angels, demons,
religious or theological.
Because people can interpret it as Earth if they want to, or they can interpret it as purgatory, where souls of, like, when we've died, have the ones that can't be quite judged yet because they haven't really lived a good or a bad life. They're sort of stuck in the middle, or they've done some good, done some bad. They go to purgatory, where then the demons and angels can poke and prod at them to see if they can get that soul, because I know souls must be some sort of currency.
That's something as well that isn't really explained. So that brings me to my point, I guess, about the world building and the setting is there are some really great ideas that has been presented in this realm, and I don't think that all of them have been fully fleshed out. I still have a lot of questions in terms of the rules for Purgatory, the inhabitants that are there beyond the main conflict, because as we saw, there were only like a sparse smattering of people. It looked like a wasteland, and I think it would have given more depth to see a lot of the people that Gabriel was trying to save, for example. Like, he's come down to save all these people, and we see about 10 of them in the movie that aren't as part of the conflict, so to speak. I think that the good versus evil sort of trope in it is pretty simplistic as well, except when you're talking about the nuance of the grey when we're talking about Michael/Sammael. But yeah, I think the rules of Purgatory really needed developing as well, or more time to cook.
Yeah, well, that's like, again, how I said, like, this would be a really good TV series because you'd have that time to be able to flesh things out. You could spend like a full almost hour long on each pretty much character that he goes and sees, instead of spending like 15 minutes with Uriel. He could have had like a whole 1-2 episodes with him where he let us flesh out. Or there could have been times where instead of, like, they meet Raphael, he heals Raphael is still a little bit wounded and then dies immediately. It's like he could have like joined him in a fight or something like that later on, but still got killed somehow, blah, blah. But because there wasn't that, because it was they were on such a tight budget, because they had to shorten it for movie constraints, like, a lot of things had to get lost in it. And
they also had such a large sort of, I won't say cast, but they had a lot of characters in terms of the Ark and the Fallen that they kind of had to develop, and it really makes it hard for one or the other to shine. Like, the ones that stand out for me are obviously Uriel, Gabriel, Sammael, and that's really it that we get kind of developed, and they have the most screen time. So as you were saying before, in a longer form, we'd probably have more time to sit with these characters, but in the way that it's sort of set right now, the character development really, really does suffer. And considering this was a 3-hour movie and they had to cut it down because Sony Distributing Company Australia wouldn't buy it unless it was a two and a bit hour movie, or just, under 2-hour movie for marketable reasons.
Oh, for me, they missed out on so much. Like, Lilith, she's meant to be like the queen of monsters.
Yeah. Like, all of that lore that we're talking about there, when we were talking about Asmodeus being like the king of like lust and sexual desire and all that sort of unbridled passion, and then Lilith being the queen of the damned, all that sort of lore that sits behind all of these very sort of famous and heavy lore-built characters could have been really explored in a really deep and meaningful way.
Like, I would have loved, because Lilith uses a fucking sniper rifle to kill Uriel from a distance, when she's meant to be like the queen of like monsters. Like, she could have some, like, she could use like a few like big ass fucking ugly vicious dogs or some shit and command those dogs.
Yep.
Or other creatures, even wolves or something like that, or something else to, like, because he's outside, it could have been like creatures or animals and shit that she could have commanded to kill him, because that's her thing. Like, no, that's what I feel like. None of their characters really got to show off their thing.
And I agree with you there.
Except for Asmodeus is probably the only one who got to sort of show off a bit of what he is about, which is he's all about
in the fun house,
loves himself, so he's trying to create a sort of mirror image of himself. Because
even that was a little bit muddy for me too.
Well, yeah, because you didn't know about it unless sort of. I didn't know about it until I sort of read up
I saw it
on
in the
his
special
character.
features.
Yeah. And you missed a lot of that stuff. And like Moloch, it was like pestilence and disease and that. You see him because he looked like a white ghoul. But you don't get to see anything like that. Like, I would have liked to, like, he had like bugs and shit crawling all over him or something like that. Because realistically, the demon characters, they didn't have to hide shit. They could use their powers as much as they want because they were winning. They didn't have any fear of getting killed by other angels because they'd already demoralized all of them. And like, none of them really got to show off their stuff. Show their
stuff. I agree. I think that that's what we mean when we say there's so much potential in this world building setting, and there's so much lore behind the characters that you can really kind of dive into, but we really don't get to see that in this movie. And I wouldn't say that it's rushed, because I feel like the pacing in this movie is a little bit here and there as well.
In this movie is probably one thing that I hate the most.
Yeah. And I think that with that in mind, we just don't get enough on what the characters are all about to really care about, because we know that some are fallen and some are arc, but beyond that, there's really nothing of depth. And I think that they could have benefited from a little bit. And maybe that means, only having one or two arcs and one or two fallen that we can get a bit more in depth with. But for the story of Gabriel, I think that they ambitiously tried to do too much, left too much to assumption, and it didn't really sit. Let's talk about the light and dark based sort of powers and the way that Purgatory reacts, I guess you could say, to those light and dark based powers. Because I know I really like the element that the arc get weaker the longer they're in Purgatory. I like that. Is that the same for the fallen?
Well, no. So it is said in the movie. So whoever's winning, their powers grow. Whoever's losing, their powers weaken. So if the archangels were actually winning, they'd be able to have more power, and the fallen would lose their powers. But because we are human and we are easily corruptible, it's really hard for the angels to stay on top. And then that's why it's so easy for the fallen to win and overcome and demoralize and crush the
that's
arcs.
literally why Michael / Sammael sort of fell, because he thought that as hard of as much effort as he put into saving humans, their own folly is themselves in the way that...
And this goes into what you were saying with pacing. Like, how long do you think Gabriel was in Purgatory before the end, when he got there to where he ends?
Well, I would say a day.
Weeks. He was there for weeks, but it felt like a day.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like one long ass day, because it didn't really show the times he was like having breaks and shit, but because of the pacing, it didn't really show that, and it didn't do the whole thing where it's like 3 days later or something like that, because that'd be stupid. Arcana would look stupid if they tried doing it that way. But he was there for an extended period of time, because you see when he was talking to other characters, he's like, oh, we talked to Asmodeus, but he's like, how long have you been here? A week, 2? Try being here for 3 years or whatever it was. And that's really like I was picked up and was like, he didn't say like a day or like a day or 2. You've been like a day or 2. He's like, what, you've been here a week, a month, or what it is?
Yeah. I think more context would have been given to those parts if we were actually seeing the 3-hour cut, because there's, we get more about how Gabriel learns to be a human, and that would have taken him a little bit of time. Eating for the first time. You see him standing in those first scenes where you see him coming down on Earth after he lands in the wormhole. You actually see him attempting to talk. That's what he's actually doing in that moment. So yeah, I think that could have been more well explained if they either needed to use their runtime a little bit more effectively, or make it into a different sort of feature instead of a film. Anyway, let's rate this. Is it going to be good as in arc or bad as in fallen? What do you think for the world building / setting? I might go first, because this is kind of tricky for me, because I think there is a lot of potential, a lot of good ideas. Execution, not so much. So I think for me, I'm going to give it a fallen with a shiny Gabriel falling off the top of the building arc as a little caveat. That's what I'll give it. So definitely a lot of fallen with a little spark of light for the potential that the idea holds.
I'm going to give it an arc, but for the opposite for you. I'm going to give it the arc because of the idea and the potential, but I'm going to give it a code of, I just got all my friends killed. For execution.
Going a bit fallen. Yeah.
Going that little bit fallen because of the execution of it. Because, to be honest, this could have been so good given A, more funding, B, more time.
All right. So let's get our next one for real deal. All right. This one has come up as the pacing. We kind of talked about this a little bit earlier in our world building setting. I'll come straight out and say that this is an arc for me.
100%.
Yeah, especially, the first act for me is a little bit slow. Us learning what we do need to learn about Gabriel coming down, and that pre-lore about the fallen and the arc comes as sort of screen text. And then it really didn't sort of pick up and peak for me until he started talking to Uriel. And that conversation there gave me more lore and information than that whole part beforehand. So I reckon they should have sort of foreground
whole
of that.
fall. They should have just fallen. I even reckon the
And Uriel could have just found him.
Yeah, well, I reckon the he could have fallen closer, because he fell into the outskirts and had to walk into the city. He could have fallen to the outskirts right near where Uriel was, and that's why how Uriel was able to pick him up so much, because Uriel was able to cut himself off.
But he would have seen.
A big shockwave came out, and he would have felt that. And he still would have to open his mind up and say, Gabriel, shut the fuck up.
Come over here. Yeah, that would have been.
Yeah. And he went straight there and then got all the information he needed.
Because that scene was capturing. I really liked that scene with Uriel and
because as much as I love Andy
and Harry Pavlidis,
that's the one where he lands and he's sort of I do like it, but they didn't have to. I don't think they had to go as long as it did.
Yeah, I agree.
Basically landing and then doing all the
going through the motions and the movements.
Feeling for the first time, like it was great, like and it was needed because this is the first time he's been in a multiple body. It's the first time he's touching, feeling, smelling, hearing, all that kind of jazz. So I sort of needed that part, but I reckon that, like, when I was rewatching, I was like, oh, I didn't realize this went for so long. It just went for a longer time than I was like, I remember it. I'm like, oh, I thought this was shorter. This is like almost 5 minutes of him just on the ground at the start.
Yeah.
Which
it could have been done as a series of flash cuts. Like, it could have been done as a series of flash cuts where he, like, maybe while he's talking to Uriel, he just gets those flashes of him coming down and then learning these things for the first time. There was a few smarter ways that they could have gone about it. So yeah, that first act was a little bit too slow and confusing and time crunchy for me. And then when it gets to the middle act, it's kind of in these repetitive cycles of find bad guy, kill bad guy, move on to next bad guy.
Which actually reminded me so much of The Crow.
Yep, all that had that too, didn't it? It had it through the middle. So with that, it was sort of this drawn out, monotonous kind of. Well, the thing for me with The Crow to compare, I feel like the action sequences, although that they were repetitive, they were a little bit more satisfying to watch for me than the ones in this movie, Gabriel. And I think that's just because the ones in The Crow were trained and choreographed, not an hour beforehand. So the wait, I guess, wasn't worth the punch.
Seeing Andy and the Spartacus, like, and man can fight. The man can fight, and that's from the training that they got for Spartacus and everything. So, like, with training, like, he could have, like, those fight scenes, like, they all could have been really, really, really good. If they see, it all comes down to, God, I wish they had a better budget. I absolutely wish they had a better budget, because I think that this movie could have been, especially for 2007, could have been a huge hit. Especially coming out just before, like, Iron Man and before, like, the big Marvel rush, until Marvel took over pretty much all cinema and everything had to fight against Marvel to be any good.
And then we get to, like, the climax, where we talked a little bit before about how they assume a lot of things and there wasn't enough time given for Gabriel to kind of come to the realization he did, or the audience to come to that realization before he threw himself off the building. So that was kind of rushed. So it's got this inflated beginning act and this rushed end act. And through the middle, it's got these sort of repetitive fight cycles. So for me, it's definitely a fallen for me. All right, let's get our most valuable takeaways. We discussed the most important thing we learned from the media we have watched. It could be something that extends our knowledge or something that we can apply to our life. It can be as simple as a piece of dialogue or something that's stuck to us, like a thematic or moral lesson. Brash, you can go first for this one.
So for me, this movie sort of gives me the same feeling that one of my favorite animes gives me, and that's One Piece. And that's hope. Hope is the big thing I take away from this movie. It is, no matter how bad your life gets, just try and hold on to that hope, because it can always turn around. There have been moments in my life where, especially when I was younger, in more my teenage years, where I was not happy with my life. But my mom used to always say, life's shit and then you die. And I still like to say that, but, like, more in a way of the way I take that is, life's not going to hand you everything. So life's shit and then you die, but it's what you make of it for then is, well, what you take away. So life's not easy. Like, the only people who could probably say that, and even people who, like, I look at some people and I'm like, man, they must have a really easy, happy life. They could be going through shit as well. Like, life's not easy. It's a struggle. just look at the wild. You can walk out in Australian bushland and get bitten by a snake and die. Like, it is rough. It is rough out there, and it's rough everywhere. You got to take the good and hold on to that, because that's what gets you through. And Gabriel, I think, in this whole movie, and that's why I love Gabriel's character in this, because the whole time when he first gets there, he's like, oh shit, and all the feelings. And then everyone's like, oh, this place is dark and dismal. Hide yourself and just find somewhere to hide in a hole, right? And he's like, no, we're here to make things better. We're here to brighten up everyone's lives. Yeah, don't give up. Keep going. And then when everyone dies, he's like, oh no, like, because I think at that moment when everyone dies, he's like, oh, I've gotten all my friends killed. What have I got left? And then that's when he sees the kid, the woman, and that's when he's like, no, I have more here than I realize. There's Jade, and there's all the people here who I can lift up and bring them back the hope that's been taken away from them. And I get behind that, and that's why I love One Piece as well so much, because One Piece is all about hope as well.
That's really good, Brash. Thanks for sharing that. That's awesome. That's a really good takeaway, because mine's kind of in a really similar vein. Mine's about like personal growth through like dark times, basically. So having that self-awareness to be sort of accountable, and then make those personal kind of transformations that you need to do, because during this movie, Gabriel views morality in really black and white terms. And I think that he believes himself to be really sort of good and righteous and pure and immune to the weaknesses that is in the world that others in his sort of line have succumbed to. He's kind of, and then something happens that really sort of rocks him. Like his worldview is shattered, basically, and he struggles with his own sense of identity after that, and where he then kind of has to, he has moments of anger and moments of extreme pride and resistance to change, and then he has this really kind of rigid mindset for a little while, but then, you know, he has those moments where he does in fact in the end know that his personal growth will come through being able to take that accountability, not shift blame onto others, and actively work to correct these darknesses that is happening, not just to him, but to a lot of other people. So being able to make that personal growth in a darker sort of time is really good. And it could be like, I've been in positions with it myself where you really, sometimes it's just as simple as setting one habit that you make that you're going to do when you're feeling, and the darkness might not be external. For some people it is, but some people it's internal. It might be a depressive state. But whatever you're kind of going through in that sort of moment of weakness and kind of darkness, you can just put one foot forward in front of the other and progress, and have that growth mindset is what we use in school to talk to kids about it, is, you know, not having that rigid mindset of everything is dark and everything is against me, but take that one sort of step forward, and it can be a small step, but it's forward. And that's kind of what Gabriel did when he was in that hallway fighting Asmodeus. He kind of said, okay, I can save this girl in front of me now. I can save her. And he did that. And then after that, he moved on to the next problem, and then the next, and then the next. And then eventually, in the end, he fell onto grace, which was the ending for him. So he got he became the light that he was looking for. And in the same way that people who are going through those sorts of depressions, it's the hardest thing to do. And I know, because I'm speaking from like experience, when it's the hardest thing to do when you have to take that one step, when you really just don't feel like doing fucking anything.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
And then, taking that one step can be as simple as, you know,
Talking to a friend, making the choice to talk to a friend, or going for a walk that day. It can be as simple as, you know, cleaning your room.
Yep.
Doing some, just any task.
Mm-hmm. Moving forward is the thing, and striving for that kind of growth mindset and that improvement. And that's what I kind of got from this movie, which is that ability to just take that one step forward and move through hard things. So, which is pretty good for a low budget Australian.
Yeah.
Like, hey.
Yeah, so as much as like you can harp on about how poor it is and how like choreography is bad and how it looks bad, but the actual message itself is there.
Yeah. And I think that's why we watch movies, you know, is to find those things we can relate to in them as well. All right, let's rate it. All right, now Fandom Portals Honor Board is where we rate the media that we just watched and we place it on our Letterboxd Honor Board. This board can be followed, tracked, and found on our Letterboxd, which is at Fandom Portals. Rating the movie. Okay. So for me, I think that the idea is good. Execution was poor. I think that they did what they could under a small budget, and I'm not discounting their sort of Aussie battler mentality for this one as well. I think I'm sitting somewhere between like 1.5, 2 stars. I'm leaning more to 2 stars because of how compelling Gabriel was. So I think I'll give it a 2. 2 out of 5.
I was going to go 3.5, but then I'm like, no, that's me just being generous because I really do like the premise of this movie. I do like the fact that they like the Aussie battler mentality of this and how they work so hard. Just these ragtag group of people pretty much that had to fill in for different roles and just get this movie done. I was going to give 3.5, but then I'm like, no, I had to be realistic to the actual, as much as like, as I say, with more money, it could have been so much better. That wasn't the case.
Mm.
So I was going to give it 3.5. I'm probably going to give it, I'm sort of now leaning between 2.5, 3, because I don't want to be too generous because that feels dishonest.
Yeah.
With how it actually is.
This is like me with Dragonheart. I really wanted to give it a 5.
I was going to say, I'd really love to give Gabriel a 5. But as much as I love this movie, I might even have to drop it down to 2.5. Just purely because they tried so hard, but unfortunately, because of constraints, it wasn't executed well.
Okay. Well, looking at our Fandom Portals Honor Board, with you giving it 2.5 and me giving it a 2, it sits at an average of 2.25, which means that it will either sit in front of or behind Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny.
That's fair.
Mm-hmm. So that'll be sitting at 11th or 12th.
I really didn't like that movie. So the fact that it was a movie I liked, but that had a low budget and made it poor, is doing as well as a high budget movie with star power.
Well, that is actually a good... And you know what? It is still higher than our lowest rated movie at the Fandom Portals podcast, which is Red One.
Let's go Red One.
Yeah, woohoo! So
I do feel kind of bad that Red One is lowest, but unfortunately, we've watched better movies.
So I'm happy to put this above Indiana Jones if you want.
I'm happy with that too. I reckon that'd be poetically Australian. Let's give it that little bump for being Australian.
Yeah, good. That's a good point. Look, we're going to give it a bump for being Australian, and we're going to place it above Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So it will sit 11th on our Fandom Portals Honor Board. Let's do our sign off. All right, everybody, this is goodbye for this week. Brash and I have proudly brought to you Gabriel. On the very last day of the month, we will be releasing our Fandom Portals Portal is Pick episode, which you guys selected from our community watch list. If you wanted to be a part of that, you can join our Letterboxd or even just suggest a movie on any of our social medias and we'll put it on our watch list. The voting happens on our social medias and you guys picked the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie from 1990.
Hell yeah.
Yeah,
Woo.
We get to do it. Woo! This movie was selected by Boreal Seth. So thank you, Boreal Seth. You will be shouted out in our next episode as well. So looking forward to that one. If you wanted to send us a movie recommendation, you can do so by email, which is our email address is fandomportals@gmail.com. You can also give us an honest review and rating at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We appreciate any feedback that we get. We read out some fan mail last week on our Dragonheart episode, and it really made our days. It was really, really awesome to see. Some big things coming in April for the Fandom Portals podcast, guys, as well. We've got some new things up on the interwebs and some new ways for you to interact with us, so definitely follow the show.
I'm super, super excited for Teenage Mutant Nightmare Turtles.
Well, apparently that movie's called Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles.
Really?
More about that next time. See you later. This is Aaron signing off from the Fandom Portals podcast. Be safe, everybody. Be happy.
This is Adam signing off. See ya.